Next, cab off the rank, we have Aidan McLindon, who was a member of the Queensland State Parliament from 2010 to 2012. He also served as an infantry soldier from 97 to 2002, and this election he is running against Daniel Andrews in his seat of Mulgrave under the Freedom Party. Aidan will be speaking on freedom of religion and speech, government overreach, and above-the-line voting ticket. Pay particular attention to the above-the-line voting ticket, because I will be picking up on it in some of my stuff immediately after Aidan. Aidan, the crowd is yours.
Thanks very much, Joel. And at the expense of getting in trouble with the cameraman, I'd just ask you to quickly stand up for just 10 seconds, have a stretch, because we've had 4 speakers, and as Bernie would know, there's nothing worse than being the first speaker, and that would be the 5th speaker, okay? So have a quick stretch. At the end of the day, as I say to my students, adults are just big kids. We all suffer a bit of, we don't want to get our deep vein thrombosis, etc. It's a little brain break, and we can be seated. And thanks very much, Joel, to yourself for this platform of Turning Point Australia, which I think is a very poignant title for this platform. To the viewers watching this currently or going forward, and to our audience here today, we are at a turning point in Australia, not just in Victoria, not just in Australia, but also for the West. And it shouldn't come as a surprise that we were the longest locked down city in the world, okay? Don't think for a second that Victoria is not a litmus test of a wider agenda. It is simple as that. So, in some respects, this is a bit of a Eureka stockade. It's, we can see the waves of the Brits coming in. We've got a certain amount of bullets and gunpowder, but we've had enough. We have had enough. And the name Daniel Michael Andrews, and you know you're in trouble when your full name's been said. Make no mistake, this is just one name in a very big game, okay? It's the cabinet that sits behind him, it's the bureaucracy that sits behind him, it's the agenda that sits behind him, which therein lies the war, okay? He may very well be the figurehead, but it's a much larger battle at stake here. I like to think of it as the beliefs versus bureaucracy, or government versus God, and this is what this referendum is about. Yes, cost of living is, one of the front and centre issues. These are the day-to-day machinations of what's going in your wallet and what's going out. But the absolute reality is this is a referendum of whether or not we want to be a state of freedom where you have freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and freedom of movement. It's as simple as that. Okay, that is the elephant in the room. And to our brothers and sisters in the floodplains at the moment, I know I've got my parents in Moama, and my brother and family and friends and the students that I taught and the teachers in Echuca. Over the next 48 hours, they're going to go some pretty tough times. So we keep them in our thoughts and prayers. But we also have a righteous anger that our Premier, this Premier, because I don't consider him my Premier, has prevented SAS volunteers ready for deployment because they have not matched a mandate that was cruel and inhumane. They are sitting ready to deploy, but no. Whilst every other mandate's been dropped in every other sector, Daniel flies in a helicopter from town to town, basking in the light and preventing our fellow citizens from getting in there, rolling their sleeves up and helping them. People will die as a result of this decision. Houses will be wiped as a result of this decision. And we need to call him out for what it is. What game is being played? What is your objective? Preventing somebody from handing out a life jacket to our brothers and sisters. This is sick. It's disgusting. It's unacceptable. And he will be brought to account and held to justice in due course. Yes, we will forgive him, absolutely. That is what we do, but we'll never forget. Otherwise it'll happen again. I've got a couple of disclaimers to make with my opposition in the district of Mulgrave. And my students always tell me, Mr. Mack, you look like Dan Andrews. I get it, my stupid glasses. Okay, through no fault of my own, I went to Specsavers and got a 2-for-1 deal 3 years ago. I've been forever regretting it, and I just haven't got time to get my eyes done again, so I apologise in advance But it has worked in my favour to some people with language barriers in the district of Mulgrave, I can assure you. You know, they pat me on the back and said, oh, you're Premier, you're Premier. I said, no, I'm Aidan, not Dan, I'm Aidan. And of course, that doesn't stop them from taking a photo and, you know, smiling at the camera. And the only other thing I have in common is that our first job was that we sold hot dogs. So I sold hot dogs at Dreamworld at 14 3/4 as soon as I could get me foot in the door. And apparently that's what he sold as well. But thereafter, I think the difference between the member for Mulgrave is that he's sort of been in the slippery suit in Spring Street ever since. Whereas, you know, I've had quite a projected life, and I think that's where I believe my experience will come into play in one of the biggest challenges of my life that lies ahead. And I feel like an Australian at large because I was born in Darwin. I was raised in, you know, country Victoria, Whittlesea, and then at Western Districts in Hamilton. Then I was up in Brisbane for 25 years and dabbled in politics and got thrown around the washing machine there, you know, and then came back down 9 years ago to Echuca and to the Mornington Peninsula. So I think that's given me good insight too, though, of what we who we are as a culture and as a nation. And equally, I can be accused of running from party to party. I'll make no bones about it. I've been in 6 political parties, I think. I've lost count. But you know what? I've never ever compromised my principles. Never. I joined as a Liberal Party member in 1996. Okay, that morphed into the Liberal National Party coalition, which I was actually a part of on the committee to merge that in Queensland. Of course, I've helped Family First, been on the ticket in Family First. I've been Queensland Party, which I started in Queensland, which morphed into Katter's Australian Party. I mean, I understand the pulse of what we do, of what we have, and I'll touch on that in some of my closing notes of where we are now collectively and where we could possibly be going forward. So government overreach is obviously something that is impending on us upon, I was going to say weekly, but it's actually daily. And the amount of legislation, Bernie, you would attest to this, the amount of legislation that they push through a sausage machine with very limited time for any member of parliament to properly get their head around it and decipher what's in those, you know, the devil of the detail. I think this agenda has been going for quite some time. It's been pre-written, so don't underestimate the top echelons in bureaucracy. And the Freedom Party over the weekend, we announced that often, and many of you may not know, but in the lead up to elections, many Director Generals and people high up in the echelons of the bureaucratic system renew their contracts, whether it's 3, 4, 5 years it is, in Queensland I'm aware. And they do that in the event there is a change of government, they get a 5-year payout. Well, our policy will be that we'll be holding all payouts until there's a full inquiry done about the last 4 years in terms of the response to the pandemic and what role those bureaucrats played in delivering advice that we were never seen before any payouts are made. Full stop. You will not be using our taxpayers as some sort of gift on the way out after the destruction you've caused in the background, and they will be held to account. Okay, the public service generally has done a great job because they're only beholden to their leaders above them, which then gives me a segue to how I see our faith leaders in Victoria and Australia. I must say, as a person of faith, yes, I've had my own journey with its ups and downs. I think that's the nature of who we are as humans. I am absolutely disgusted, okay, at a portion of our faith leaders, and this is a very clear message to you. In the last 2 years, many of you have been silent, which means you've been complicit. Some of you have put 50 cents each way. Well, you cannot serve 2 masters. And what I say to our faith leaders now, in 37 days, you have a choice to stand with your congregation and the faith that you espouse, or you need to move across and let someone from your congregation do it because you are not doing it now. It is not acceptable. This is a referendum on God or government. Simple. And I myself has been a victim of that as well, and I make no bones about it. Okay, the Archbishop of Melbourne, I'm sorry, but you do not terminate 1,200 people under your watch and refuse my 5 emails to you. Okay? That is not being a servant to the people. And that's the reason I've been put in a position now to hold class action against, which now currently has 117 teachers. Okay, as Warren touched on before, there is no crisis of shortage in our frontline sectors. The crisis is the government's decisions, the inhumane government decisions that created a 2-tiered society, that put neighbour upon neighbour, that divided families, that divided our communities, that made teenagers check adults' medical advice when they wanted to simply go in and have a coffee, okay? And to Shane Patton and the people and the leaders at the top of, as Bernie alluded to, one of the great travesties of what we've seen is that being cherry-picked and politicised. The good old days when you understood who your police officer's name was and you had a community connection. And when you saw a police officer, you knew you were safe. Now you're not quite sure. And I feel sorry for our brothers and sisters in the police force and what they've been subjected to do. But I equally thank those people who stood up for themselves and realised that they were more loyal to their people until before their job. You know, Crystal Mitchell comes to mind. There's a lot of people out there who have said they've taken a stand and said, you know what, I can't do this. And that's what I say to the faith leaders: you cannot serve two masters. Don't pretend you're protecting Australians and then following things that fundamentally cripple us. The education system, I can speak on some authority in this because I did, Bertie, I know you alluded to the amount of Victorians that went to Queensland. Well, I was one of the odd ones that came from Queensland to Victoria. And ironically, I actually started again because half the family was in Victoria, half was in Queensland. And I made the informed decision to get away from politics and reinvent myself as a teacher because, you know, after you've done 12 years in public life, you call it a day. And now I find myself in the epicentre of the bear pit. So, but I guess Vic Roads, you know, they predicted this years ago on their number plates when it had Victoria on the move underneath. So, but, you know, they probably knew something we didn't. But the Freedom Party of Victoria, with our small business policy, has said one of the options for Vic Roads, with our our reimbursement of GST to small to medium businesses, because what people don't really understand is that between 2019 and 2021, Australia produced an extra 100 billionaires. We went from 37 billionaires to 137 billionaires. Okay, so the gap between the haves and have-nots is real, and it's happening exponentially. Therefore, the top end will have a COVID release tax policy package that will be provided to small and medium businesses as from 1st of July 2023 for a period of 12 months, and then will be reviewed. And then one of the options, of course, for the number plates will be Victoria open for business, because we need to get our small businesses, they are the backbone. In the education system, it's been touched on. During those 2 years, I was actually helping 8 schools. I oversaw 80 schools from Richmond to Portsea. 8 of those Catholic schools were in the district of Mulgrave, and I've taught in several government schools in Mulgrave. And I can attest to what Lyle has touched on, that these children need support, care and compassion. They do not need to be used as political pawns, because these major parties thrive off division, okay? These isolated instances where people are struggling, they are isolated, believe me, okay? I have the list of them in 80 schools, okay? I had to be that person, that go-to person. And you'd rock up to schools and the principal would be like, oh, we've got somebody who's confused, we need to change all the toilets to gender. No, you do not need to make them all gender neutral. It's the last thing that child who needs the love, support and care and compassion wants, to be put under a spotlight and all of a sudden change whole systems for everybody. It's confusing for both the person going through it and the people who aren't. Okay, it's as simple as that. We need some common sense. So of course I went there and they had a disabled toilet. There was no disabled children at the school. It was full of storage. I said, great, you've got a standalone toilet there for year 5s and 6s. Simple. There's your answer. Problem solved. Okay? We have to be very sensitive in these issues rather than put what I call as sexual sashes up at every school. You walk in, there's rainbows everywhere. They've hijacked one of the beautiful things that was given to us as a sign of hope. Okay, now we need to hijack that back. They do not belong. It does not belong in the hands of these people with these insidious agendas, and I hope they see the light one day. And I'm sure they will. But it's actually it's very cruel for the corporate world to start making sure that this sexual sash is put on people's badges and their rings and their lanyards, and it's disgusting. What grown adults do in their room and what their sexuality is not our business. It is not our business, and more importantly, it's not the children's business. I mean, what are we doing as a society? It's sick. So any of those adults, if you can hear this now, if you are forced to wear a sexual sash, okay, that unfortunately represents deviance, that's all it does now. Okay, there's more and more colours being added to it because they know exactly where they're heading. It's a steam train going to nowhere. Take it off. Tell your boss it doesn't sit well with you. It fundamentally opposes your belief system. You want to protect the children. It's simple. We hijack it back. It's simple. It does not belong in the mainstream, you know, and with same with our advertising standards. They should be G-rated, full stop. You got children in the car, G-rated, done, simple, method over. There's a saying that you can tell the morals of a country by its advertising standards. All right, time for a funny story. I thought we'd get a bit of support for the Freedom Party. I'm flying along on the freeway with me, probably shouldn't say flying along, I was going at a steady rate. And I'm over the box trailer with the corflutes around it, and just got it the previous day, actually. I'm pretty proud about it, $600. It was $750 on Marketplace, but anyway, he gave it to me $600 because he was sympathetic to the cause. And I thought, you know, we can do this. We're operating on a sniff of an oily rag, flying down the highway, and one person overtakes me and sort of gives me a bit of a wave. I thought, oh, wow, that had me corflutes there. Day one, this is fantastic. Then the next one comes up, and then this looked like a thumbs up. I'm thinking, okay, thumbs up, yeah, I'll take two, that's cool. Third one, fourth one, fifth one, I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. I've got 100% of the voters behind me. This is awesome. 5 out of 5. I know. He dries his window down the fifth one. He's going, hey, mate, your trailer. And of course, the trailer back is swinging out all over the freeway. All 5 people tried to tell me what was going on. Here I am thinking their supporters going, yep, toot, toot, go to the Freedom Party. So sometimes we can get a bit carried away about the support levels we got. It will be a battle. Much more. Hopefully we get at least one of those 5 voters that passed the car that day. And we need to, and I liked what Warren had said, touched on, we need positive alternatives, okay? We need to be a beacon of hope at this election. Okay, my position, and it's a very personal one, is that I am pro-adoption. You know, we've got, you know, people 1 in 5, 1 in 6 couples are infertile. Well, I was one of those. My wife and I adopted Grace at, you know, beautiful Grace at 1-year-old. She's now 12, 13. That is the answer. That's the solution. These mothers need care and compassion and protection. You know, not just walking straight in there as a first resort. It's like, you know, we're going to damage the life inside you and we're going to damage you for life. And guess what? There is no support mechanism when you walk out. It's disgusting. Same with the gender transitions. It's $40,000 a transition with $3,000 of medications every year. This is a business. It's a license to print money for these organisations that are getting government funding. Don't make any mistake. This is nothing short of another business model. Okay? And it really, I feel really sorry for those children that I've had to help in this, where they've been used as a political pawn. 2 more points for a go, and these are very important. I will touch base on injecting rooms. Okay, my car was locked out in the city when I was campaigning at 9 p.m. The gates went down. I spent a whole night, okay, walking the streets of Melbourne. Very, very different city at night time. Even though the soul's been sucked out during the daytime, very, very different city. And what I'll tell you now, the Current Affair had an interview with me the other day between myself and Daniel, what our positions were, and I said, no, point blank, you do not feed the problem. They need to be weaned off. Okay, the paramedics are sick and tired of going out and about. All their answer is to reload them, inject them and send them back out onto the streets. It's irresponsible. That is not how we look after our brothers and sisters. They need proper rehabilitation and care, and that's why our position is to repurpose the $580 million quarantine that was shut down for a health and community and wellbeing centre, a facility where it's opt-in so we can repurpose these people. In the interest of the group voting tickets, GVTs otherwise known as, these are absolutely critical. And if there's one thing you take today, understand this. When you get your ballot, okay, your blank ballot for above the line, you have 2 options, to vote 1 or a minimum of 5 or more below. 99% of people vote above. Here's the trick. When you put that 1 in and put it in the ballot box, generally, historically, no one has ever known where that vote goes, because the preference card is held out in the background by a consultant who wheels and deals and charges $5,000 for a retainer fee, and should his person get up, they get another $50,000. Therefore, for $55,000, you get the best chance of becoming a crossbench, which has historically happened. Okay? So on the 14th of November, when the group voting tickets are then published on the VEC website, you need to know exactly where that one goes, because there are a lot of wolves dressed in sheep's clothing, and the crossbench, okay, absolutely critical. Therein lies the power. We'll be running in every lower house seat as well, because we want to make an impact below, because I don't believe the Liberals can do it by themselves. And the group voting ticket at the top, please follow your primary vote. Don't just vote one thinking that's where it's going to go. It'll be bounced around. You'll vote for Mickey Mouse over here, and you'll end up with Goofy over here if you don't look at it, because that is absolutely critical. And I do believe that there is a minimum of 8, somewhere between 8 and 12 crossbench seats that will be changed at this election, which is great hope. Okay, now leave with the words, and I think we're entering Menzies 2.0, and he came out and collected the Liberal Party together just after World War II, and I've sort of had lots of mentors right from B.A. Santa Maria as a 16-year-old listening to his speeches right through all the parties. But I think we need to demonstrate in Victoria that we can be unified, regardless of our obscure differences. It doesn't matter. We have the absolute skeletal structure there, okay? We stick together. If we can stick together in this election, there'll be massive opportunities Australia-wide on the 27th and onwards, and this is what we've got to do. We have to find what our common objective is, focus on our strengths, ignore our weaknesses, and let's start the beginning of Menzies 2.0. It has to happen for the nation's sake. It has to happen. And I will just end on this point, that for 40 days, which is a very pertinent number in the Christian calendar, for 40 days I will be doing a high noon at Noble Park outside of Daniel's office. It started 3 days ago. We've only had the Labor Party shut us down once on the second day. That's okay, we forged forth. But for the next 40 days between here and the 25th, I'll be there doing a live press conference at 12 p.m. With a topic every single day with Morgan Jonas, the state leader, on Morgan C. Jonas's Facebook site live. And I just want to say, people like Joel, that this is the future of our media. Okay, the mainstream media will be nothing but a record player or a CD disc in the next 5 years, because this is where it happens. Okay, so I thank you all for everything, for this platform, Joel, and to all the speakers. Let's unify. Let's unify on the 26th. Let's put our differences aside, and let's do everything we can to make sure that we can change the course of Victoria and Victorians. Okay? God bless you all.